Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you, my friends? How's your day? How's your weekend? It is Saturday morning here in the United States. How are you all doing? You are welcome. Welcome to my live today. I hope you are doing well. Welcome. Welcome everyone. My name is Lady Winnie and I'm coming to you from the US. I hope you're doing well, especially friends from Uganda. I hope you're doing well because I know it's hard. It's hard there and you don't need to tell me. I know it's hard. But that's the reason we fight, and we fight on. Okay. I'm sorry. Cancel call. Decline call. Thank you for being here. Sorry, a call was coming in on my other phone. Ayo, Anna. Thank you so much for being here. We'll get right to it. There's a lot that has been happening. I was meant to come yesterday, but I couldn't. Something came up, and I apologize, but we hope to make that up. I hope we can. Okay? Welcome to our live today, and I hope that I can explain or put some insight on certain things that are going on or happening back in Uganda, especially. First of all, I want to give me just a second. I'm just finishing something here. Hold on just a minute, please. I'll be right there. Just a minute. Welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Just closing some loose ends, tying up some loose ends where I need to be or need to do. I hope you're doing well as much as can be, especially brothers and sisters in Uganda. So many things are going on. A lot has happened in the last week. A lot of sorrow has happened to parents, school owners, families and friends of students who have lost their lives. A lot else has happened in Karamoja, where there's lots of hunger. In Acholi sub-region, there's lots of hunger. I'll talk about all of that. I will highlight, especially, I want to talk about the accidents that have been happening. Many people have different explanations or reasoning to, with regard to the accidents, or the accidents that have been happening. We've had 4 since the 7th of July. We've had 1 on the 7th, another one on the 10th, another one on the 14th, and another one on the 16th, or 2 on the 16th. That was yesterday. There's a lot behind it, but if you've been following the security alerts that I've been bringing to you, you will not be surprised. So I want to highlight especially that area of the accidents because it is heartbreaking, it is sad, everybody's looking for answers. Unfortunately, some people still look to Museveni and Muhoozi for assistance, which I hope that nobody should expect Museveni or Muhoozi or whatever their government is to be a savior in any form, because truly they are the orchestrators of these atrocities that are happening in Uganda, and I'll explain to you how. I've made some comments on different posts of different individuals about the accidents, because there are different references to why they were happening or why they've happened. And I can understand, because until you study the Museveni's people, Museveni's history, how Museveni has functioned, what he has been doing for a while, how Ugandans have missed the point, how he has told us this and done the other, how Museveni has operated for 40 years, keeping Ugandans in the dark, and how social media and the coming of His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu has unveiled everything. I mean, Museveni is naked, like born of all his clothes. Whatever he wore to hoodwink Ugandans is right in plain sight. And we thank His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, because his mission, his message, which he had been doing for a long time. But I can tell you that I may be one of the people who ignored, you know, the facts, did not think about them the right way, believed what our parents told us, never questioned why certain things happened. That is why, in my own way, I thank whatever Muhoozi's existence is today, whatever Muhoozi does or whatever Museveni is doing now is easily relatable to what Museveni did when he came into power. And that's where I want to highlight, especially these accidents that are happening, okay? Especially those. And I will tell you right now that some of you are going to leave here today thinking I'm the most crazy person you've ever met. But I'm okay with that, because as long as I get that out of my system, as long as I relay to you the facts from the insiders around the Musevenis, when Museveni speaks, sometimes we get purely what he has said. When they plan, we get 100% of what they've planned. And I've told you countless times about, you know, accidents and children dying and school fires. And I told you especially about a train accident, which was planned by the Musevenis to have done. But here's the history of how all of this comes about. I have to read, so I'll look down and then look back up, and like that. But we'll get to the end of this, okay? I want to especially mention that all of the accidents that are happening are spiritual and have to do with witchcraft of the Museveni family. Many of the people that I mentioned that in their post or shared or commented said, you know, we wonder, we don't think so, we don't believe so. But here's how maybe you can understand how we get here. When Museveni came into power in the 1980s, I was born in 1986. So in the 1980s, before some of us were born, our parents tell us these stories, but there are several historicals who now want change, who realize that, you know what, with thinking back to what happened, they realized that they were told a lot of lies, they fought the wrong war, they were not well intended, and that whatever they did was not for what Museveni told them they were doing it for. They were hoodwinked into a war that they were not supposed to be even part of. Had they known the truth, those people at the time that ushered Museveni into power, they may have turned on to him and got him out of there. Welcome, Jonna. Very welcome. Welcome, Katende. Welcome, Mathis. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you're here. Yes, I missed you guys too. It's been a while. It's been a while. A lot of things happen, you know. Being a mom, my daughter had a birthday the other day, and I had school is coming up, so we're figuring out this, that, and the other, different schools, different grades and levels, you know, different requirements, meetings and this and that, but also personal life, work, balance and all of it. But every day, I don't go to bed without thinking about Uganda. I do not go to sleep without thinking. Yesterday, I almost had a live in the night because I felt it was calling me to come out and do it. But, you know, no matter what happens, I'll always make time. I'll always make it here. So I have summarized quite a bit, a lot of information that I will share with you today. But I want to highlight the accidents because they're going to continue happening. So maybe this will save some people, okay? Maybe a few lives will be saved. So I must come today and do this. Hanifa, you're welcome. Vicky, welcome. Robin, very welcome. Okwir, very welcome. Roger, welcome. Hanifa, Florence, Afoyanen, thank you. I'll make time for the Acholi version at some point. Deborah, very welcome. So I want to talk about the accidents that are happening. Many of you may have seen a video where Museveni says Uganda is a spiritual country. Uganda has a lot to do with the spiritual world and the world that we live in, our world, okay? So I want to highlight some facts that you may be able to relate from Museveni's coming. As I mentioned, Muhoozi's doings today are a replica, if not a mirror image, of what his father did when he was coming in. So somehow try to relate and you'll see where I'm coming from. With regard to the accidents, I told you about maybe a few weeks ago, and one of the videos was around June, where they had amplified the need or desire to cause more accidents, because I'm going to bring it from that time that Museveni came into power. When Museveni came into power around the 1980s and so on and so forth, there were several people that ushered Museveni's government into power. And I say several people because I particularly want to highlight the group called the Kadogos. The Kadogos, which Museveni brags about even when he's asked about on international media or by international journalists about what happened to the children that helped usher Museveni into government. They were called the Kadogos. Now, today, Muhoozi couldn't pull that off, even if he wanted to. There's no way Muhoozi can recruit young children and give them guns and equip them and have them go to whatever bush or come in to join the army or the military. But if he could, he would. But the laws today, with several, international laws that bind the world somehow, he can't do certain things. But when his father was coming into power, so the way I want you to look at this is the Kadogos of Museveni's time versus the children's accidents today. The Kadogos then, who are used by Museveni from 4 years old and onward, and some of you can relate to the LRA war, where Museveni used a lot of young children in the wars, okay? Many, many young children. I have a dear friend from Aboke Girls. She survived the abduction when they raided the school and picked up all those girls and took them away. All of these relationships with children dying, children taken to the bush, children taken. This is all Museveni's spiritual sacrifices. Okay? And I'll bring it up later on and relate it and tie it in together eventually. But so thinking about the LRA war and think about the Kadogos during the NRA, Museveni's militaries that were ushering him into power. Only a few of those Kadogos have lived. Now, in modern time, we'll look at things like accidents, school burnings, fires that have happened consistently over time. Children that have been disappeared, killed. These are things that don't happen in other countries, okay? It's not common. You look at Kenya. We're not too far from Kenya. We're very similar in several ways. Why don't these things happen in countries like Kenya? Why? Kenya has all sorts of media. I'm sure we wouldn't miss this if it happened. But why does this happen in Uganda? And why are you people who are denying or refuting the fact that this is a spiritual thing? Why are you refuting that when you can't compare it to anywhere? What is the goal? So anyways, the Kadogos were Museveni's military that ushered him into power. But you will realize that there is no Kadogo particular names that are spoken about. None of them. None of them lived. None of them have come through from his time in the bush until now, except a few, maybe 3, 4, or 5. Not as many as the hundreds that Museveni had in the bush. Okay? Come LRA war. Several young children, many of us, I am actually from northern Uganda, trust me. The children who were taken, several, you couldn't count how many children never returned. Many never returned. The ones who returned were skillful. The ones who returned were able to survive. But all those were sacrifices. So let me bring you into Museveni's spiritual world. Museveni has ruled Uganda spiritually and physically. But he relies heavily on the spiritual world of how things and consults and witch doctors guide him on what to do, when, and where. So for a long time, he has had several different witch doctors who he has consulted with. And these facts that I'm bringing to you are from people in Museveni's family. His family, his close relations, you know, the people that reside around them that are fed up with how this man and these people, what they're doing to Ugandans as a people. So Museveni has a complete spiritual world since the beginning. When he came in, he was told by his witch spiritual world to figure out how to get ushered into governance of Uganda. And they asked for several young blood or young children. That is why the Kadogos who he captured and added into his military, the ones from Luero, children were, when he was coming in, you know, thousands of people died, but a lot of children were taken to join his army forcefully. Those children never came back because those were required, the blood was required to usher Museveni in, okay? To install Museveni at the time. So this time around, come Muhoozi, the same thing is happening. When Museveni has met several different witch doctors from different countries, even Burundi. Sometimes we've known when they're in State House trying to do things for him, to keep him active, to keep him doing this. He has been requested for a lot of things. One of the things that they've requested Museveni at that time, before he started these atrocities, was that since Museveni has been in government for a while, and now he wants to give this to his son. By the way, all of the witch doctors rejected Muhoozi. When now that Museveni has come to this, it is because they have said it is impossible for that Muhoozi to be a president of this country. Muhoozi does not have what his father had that brought him in. So Museveni has kept going back and saying, you have to find a way to do this. You have to figure out how to do this. You must figure out how Muhoozi can be ushered into power. And so the requests have become more astronomical because they keep expounding because of the difficulty of the challenge to get Muhoozi into power. You know, many of them have said that there's a guy called Ndayabaje, something like that, from Burundi, Rwanda, Tanzania especially. I think Ndayabaje was from Tanzania. Different countries, Mama Finas, they're all consults of Museveni in the spiritual world. So over and over and over, they've said Muhoozi cannot rule Uganda. Ugandans have rejected Muhoozi. Museveni goes back and says, what can I do? So they asked Museveni to offer blood from his own family, sacrifice one of his children or whatever. And Museveni says, I can't do that. But what else can I do? What else do you want? So they go back and forth and this and the other. And they decide, you know what? Give us about 700 young people as sacrifices. 700. And as crazy as that sounds, I mean, this is a huge challenge to try to usher in Muhoozi because Museveni couldn't do it. And Ugandans have rejected Muhoozi and they know that. So the reason why these accidents are happening, there's been several school burnings, you know, children burned here, children stolen, children lost. I mean, National Unity Platform, this, that, and the other. They've not stopped at National Unity Platform alone because they have to rack up the numbers, okay? They've gone on to school children and in several different ways. There's 3 different tiers that they felt like they can do this. I talked about a train accident once, maybe around June or May, where Museveni was asked to perform a train accident because the train, being a train, it is borderless. It travels between countries, you know, because wherever the rail goes, the train goes. Another thing they said, a train is unstoppable. No matter what, as long as Muhoozi is accepted or or set in place in his seat as the president of Uganda, he will be unstoppable. And the other thing is, the train being unstoppable, it would give them their dream of the Bachwezi ruling Uganda limitlessly until, I don't know, a monarchy or whatever they try to turn Uganda into. And so that explains to me, when I think about the train accident the other day, it is something that was in plan. They meant to do it. So they've asked Museveni to produce 700 sacrifices, human sacrifices of children. They've done this several different ways already. The 4 accidents that have happened, the one that happened in Jinja, let me see, in Mukono, Jinja, it is said that Museveni himself went to the scene that same night with Muhoozi, and they performed some witchcraft activity with the blood of those children. It is said that at every point of every accident where it happens, Balaam follows. Balaam is in sight, is within range before that happens. Now, okay, so there will be 3 forms. Now, they've requested that of the 3, there will be the deaths that we've seen of the children with the buses and trying to get to the events, such as tours. One of the tour incidences that happened yesterday, the bus accident where most of the children died, the a bit older children, one of the girls who survived spoke about this and said, you know what? The driver of the bus showed intentions of trying to cause an accident. And the only reason this girl survived is because she heard him speak and she realized that she was in danger. And she stayed alert and watched the moves of the driver. The fact that the driver turned off the vehicle, exited the bus before the bus crushed, helps explain the facts that that girl is speaking about. And it won't surprise me if that girl disappears from our sight. Something could happen to her because she has spoken. But because she was old enough to understand what was happening and pay attention, she was able to survive. Now imagine the little children from King David School? The little children who could not say anything, the ones in Kapchora, I believe, that could not explain, or most of them died. Had they, or were they able to speak, something would have been done about, or we would know that something wasn't right about what they were doing. Many times somebody has said, you know, we told the driver to stop, or there was several mechanical accidents. And this is the argument where several arguments have been about the mechanics of the vehicle not working and this, that, and the other. But let me tell you this. Do you know that if Ugandan kids are going on a tour and the family has contributed and all that, the ministry is the one that gives them the vehicle and the driver to take those children to whatever destination it is. Is it as difficult? Is it challenging for intentions like these to be passed down to a driver who will be promised a lot of money to go ahead and do something like this? I don't think so. So even if you argue about whether or not the mechanical issues were an issue, it is possible that the mechanics was an issue. But for that driver to push on against his own, against instructions of failure to perform as a vehicle, and if he cared about his life or wanted to save the children's life, he could have just stopped, because he'd be paid anyway. He's paid by the ministry to do the driver job. And so if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If he can't make it because the vehicle is dead, it should have been possible. But it never stopped. He pursued this thing to the end until those children were gone. So another vehicle was the accident that happened in Omoro. That was one of the first ones. Now, I don't have exact details about the Omoro accident, but I'd like to add it to this, because in places where people have been alert or heightened in their information about how things happen in our regions or in Uganda, people pay attention. They record, they take videos, they discuss things, they see inequities and wonder and figure out and try to share information so we can figure things out together. But I did not get as much information from the Omoro accident, but I know about it and it's documented. I do believe it is part of this thing. When they want 700 young children's blood, they're going to find it somehow. The other mission that they're trying to do, the third way, which one way was through the bus accidents, the second way is to get those sacrifices without losing any blood. Now, this one is going to be a very, all of them are scary. But what we suspect and what they've said is that they'll possibly have accidents at, for example, Karuma Falls, where a vehicle or a bus full of children will just, you know, end up in Karuma, and nobody will be revived, or nobody will be found, or nobody will survive. That's another plan that they have. The other one is on the streets as children are being discharged from school, you know, going home. A lot of you come out at once. I remember when I used to go to day school, lunchtime or after school, you know, several hundreds of children pour into the streets and everybody disperses home. The plan with that is that they Muhozi or Muhozi's either convoy, or they'll have other people do it, is to have a vehicle malfunction into a crowd of children, several crowds, and just go ding, 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 just to get as many as they want. Okay, so that is likely to happen. Watch out for the falls, Karuma Falls, Seziwa Falls, those falls and accidents happening where children's buses will just disappear and will have no record of where it went or what happened. And the other one is the street accident where the children will be released from school, and this will happen to several of them on the street. Okay. The other relationship, this thing of the sacrifices began with, do you remember the school where this Onyum guy went and killed some children? I think there was 4 students in a baby school or a nursery school. That is the point when, around that time is when they started the sacrifices, and they're counting towards whatever number they want to reach. When those kids died, there are people who commented and said, you know what, we did not see any sign of blood. And the Onyum case, as they said, firing squad or whatever, none of that has happened. That goes to show you that whatever is happening in Uganda is not a coincidence, not an accident. These are well-planned atrocities by the Museveni's government to try to get Muhozi and to instill Muhozi in power by all means. Okay? So I spoke about the Kadogos and the forms of accidents. I talked about the train. I talked about the street when the children get out of school. And then the death without blood, which will be either through fire or places like the Karuma, where the falls of water runs fast, or if a vehicle drops far down, there's no way of rescuing it or getting help quickly to get them saved or whatever. Okay. So Balaam has been all over these decline. So Balaam has been all over these instances. His act with Namere, going to hospitals and, I don't know, recording themselves doing whatever, all that is to keep you away from paying attention to what is actually happening. But the intentions of these accidents come straight from State House. Nobody should fool you. It is their spiritual fulfillment. They look forward to it. They want it. They're desperate to get Muhozi as president of Uganda, and that's why they're doing things like that. Okay. Another thing that I want to bring to your attention is around the time that the Namugongo event happens. Okay. That was one of the attempts to try to get as much blood of the young children as I told you about. Now, the way this Namugongo thing played out, when they consulted with their spiritual person, they had talked about starting with the Namugongo event. I mean, once the crowds came in from all over Uganda, all over the world basically, to attend the pilgrimage to Namugongo, they would then release, same thing as the children coming out of school and the accident happening, they would have some malfunctioning vehicles just to hit a bunch of people. A bunch of people. As you know, Namugongo is fully crowded and filled on the day of that event. Robin, yes, you're right. You're right. And I'm going to speak about Balaam and how Balaam is all over this thing, including the exhumation of Paulo Cafero, which Paulo Cafero himself is no longer in the ground where he's supposed to be. Because the story of Paulo Cafero, I can tell you about that after this. I don't want to lose track. But anyways, the Namugongo incident, the way that happened, they had requested that that incident be the first because it was timely, the first incident in line, because the date was coming close. And the spiritual person told them and said, you know what, if you start with the Namugongo incident, you're going to ruin everything else, because it will look like, you know, people will be more prepared for other atrocities, and you will not be successful in getting as much as you could if you start the other way around. So they ended up starting with the vehicle accidents and the trucks and the train, and eventually they may or may not get to the Namugongo type incident, but it's supposed to be one of the ways of doing it. At big and large gatherings, they will do something like that. So the Namugongo incident was saved, well, not saved by the fact that the spiritual person said it is not ideal to be first. And so when they were about to do it, Museveni came out and announced the Ebola outbreak in Uganda and a cancellation of the event, and paid the religious people involved a lot of money for them to shut up and not try to push for the event to happen. Because as you know, several other events of large gatherings have happened around that time, such as the soccer game, the Arsenal game, where a lot of people gathered, and there was no such thing as a spread of Ebola. He used that because he knew that it might be, because they can't do it, he had to figure out how to terminate it. So people got, the religious people that are present or a part of this event were paid heavily to stand down from completing that, the Namugongo event. Okay. So Namugongo was supposed to be the beginning of the 3 kinds of accidents or atrocities that would help give them the numbers of to get to the 700 that they wanted, or the spiritual person is requesting. As you remember, maybe a couple of weeks ago, I talked about Little Muheju. Little Muheju was an incident that we knew about and we talked about, and it was arranged in State House that the bus of Little Muheju, or the school Little Muheju, there would be a fire at the school in where the children are, or the bus that carries children from Little Muheju to take them to an event would be, the driver was to cause an accident, so all those children would die. You remember that the day before that event, and because we spoke about it, this is one of the security alerts that they sent to me and said, make sure you get this out right now. Get it out, it's urgent. This has already been activated, the ball is rolling, get this out right now. I came on, and I wasn't planning to, but I had to because of that was going to happen. So when we talked about Little Muheju, the day before the event, we were able to successfully reach the school, the owner of the school, director of the school, and talk to him about it. But the driver who was supposed to drive those children in the morning was discovered hanging from a tree, dead. Now, his wife, the wife of this driver, says, my husband has had no mental issues. My husband had no problems. My husband woke up like normal and had his breakfast and was ready to go to work. But because he wakes up early and has to get certain things done before he has to head to his work, something happened. Just like one of the National Unity Platform, if anybody remembers the name, there was a National Unity Platform chairman, I think in Mukono, who was also found hanging from a tree. And this was a thing that the Musevenis had done. What they do is they kill the person before they hang him up on the tree. Now think about a man who has a regular job. He's a driver. He loves his job. His family is stable, has no problems, has no debt. I think his father was coerced to say that he had some debt, therefore committed suicide. He was not the kind that would likely. Fefeka, yes, Princess Dash, thank you. You remember Fefeka, who something like this happened. He was killed first. then eventually hung from a tree. Now, you may say, well, autopsy reports say differently. In Uganda, these guys can make up just about anything. Any and everything can be forged and made up by the Musevenis, and you can doubt all you want, but you can't do anything about it. So they made up, autopsy reports saying he hanged himself or whatever the case might be, but he did not. He did not. So the Little Muheju instance that we talked about the day before it happened, the next morning the bus driver of Little Muheju was found hanging. He must have been strangled first or killed some way and then tied on a rope and hung on a tree. The next morning, it was the scariest thing in town. His family found him hanging from a tree, dead, on the day of the bus trip that would cause that accident. What they hated about this is the fact that the information leaked, and they figured out that it must have been the bus driver who leaked that information to us. It was not. But as I sometimes said, when these people have these missions, they have the team that they'll meet with to perform this, and then they'll have another team that they'll meet with to clear the performers of the mission that they've sent somebody off to, because they want to make sure there's no evidence that can be tracked. And that's why I fear for the girl that spoke from the accident yesterday, the school accident, because I think her life could be in danger, because she spoke vividly about how she remembers the driver saying, you guys are dead. Like, I must do this. I'm going to make sure none of you is going to make it to the event. He showed all signs. And I don't know if, I feel like it was God trying to let some of them know that something is going to be amiss, because at some point, even if somebody's an expert at doing certain things and hiding the truth and all of that, they say the truth always comes to light. So what I believe is that somehow this girl was blessed to know and see the intentions of this driver and be able to figure out and share eventually that this had happened. Some parents had to go take their children out of the mortuary where they had put them, and yet they were not dead. They were not. So they wanted to make sure they rack up the numbers, despite the fact that some may survive. We know that the medical system is really poor, that saving is almost oblique. You're hopeless to try to figure out saving somebody's life if they're in a medical emergency. There's no way you can succeed. Very rarely, if the family is killed or people are killed around them, they can try to figure things out. But in an accident like this, many of them will eventually die, even if they had rescuable, trauma that could be resuscitated or could be whatever. And some of them could have been in shock, because of the bang, the hit. And eventually they'd come out of it. When people have concussions, they come out of things like that. So it could have taken a while for them to actually wake up from it. But all of these accidents are well intended by State House. Museveni and Muhoozi, you guys can share this, are the perpetrators of all the school accidents, of all the children's sacrifices. Onyum, the case of that school where he went and murdered the 4 kids, they made all this story up. Onyum, his case was something that was planned from State House. All these bus accidents were planned from State House. Little Muheju's driver was supposed to be awarded a lot of money if he performed that accident. But little did he know that after him, there was another meeting to clear him so he would never see that money again. It is something that when you couldn't tell anyone. I don't think he could tell his wife, So it is the syndicate of events that make certain things go through or some not make it. The nature of the filth of it, the technicalities that come with it, but more so the plan from these people in State House. I'm telling you, Museveni's existence in Uganda has costed more than recorded number of lost lives in Uganda. More than recorded. I'm sure I'm very sure of this. Imagine if Muhoozi now, or Muhoozi's existence, is causing this much documented sorrow or atrocity in Uganda. The same people, same brains, same mindset, same playbook continue into today. Similar type of atrocity, similar kinds of accidents. Why do we not believe that it's government policy that all these things continue to happen? Especially those of you who like to swat these things down and say, oh yeah, never mind. That couldn't be, that couldn't be. Why? When are you going to put 2 and 2 together? When will this make sense? Which country do you see things like this happening? Show me which country. Where? Let us open our minds and observe things as they happen and relate and unrelate and compare with other places. I'm not saying Uganda is not civilized. Uganda is as developed as certain countries, obviously not like United States, but there are some things that are basic that must just occur just about anywhere. You can't tell me about a driver wanting to just do this and telling a child that, you know what, I must do this. Telling a child as if he doesn't have kids, as if he has never had kids, we must think beyond what they feed us through New Vision. New Vision is the worst. Natasha Broadcasting Services, NBS, is the worst. The abduction of Mwanga Chivumbi, the one that happened along his way, the last abduction that happened recently, NBS was on the scene of the abduction, which seemed like a regular traffic stop. Regular traffic stop with the media services present to document an abduction by men and women in non-uniform without a number plate on the drone that has picked him up in a country where you have a president or you have leadership that claims to be appropriate, that claims to be doing what they do for the people. When do they do anything for the people in Uganda? When? Tell me when. In the last week alone, I mean, numbers of events, sorrow upon sorrow upon sorrow upon sorrow. Why? Why don't we, and the people who keep saying, Museveni tuyambe, oh, why? Abayambe from what? Do what? All of you calling upon Museveni must stop and figure out that you are alone. If you have a president or a savior, it is His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. You have nobody else. It is government policy. It is Museveni and Muhoozi's policy to destroy you Ugandans. By all means. And they're getting to it. Every day, something happens that we're like, oh my goodness, I did not think that's possible. I'm going to tell you some more things that you're going to be like, I think she wants some content today. But no, the reason why I have to get this off my chest is because I know it, and I know it's privy information that is important, that is true, that is coming from the source, from these Museveni people, that I must share, get off my chest so that when it happens, I'm not guilty, that I feel okay because some people might be saved by this. I know there's people who follow and obviously listen and take heed, and I appreciate that. If I can save one person, I feel like my job is done, or the reason or my existence, my purpose for doing this is met. So please do not rely on Museveni to do anything for you. No, Museveni Tuyambe is not real because he doesn't do it. He doesn't. He's not here for Ugandans whatsoever. Museveni is here for him and himself. As I mentioned to you, the spiritual person told him that Muhoozi has been rejected by Ugandans all over. Museveni said, what else can I do? And the person said, well, okay, if you must, give me a sacrifice from your family. One of your children, kill one of them and give him to me. She said, and he said, oh no, I couldn't do that. Well, what else can I do for you? What else can I do to make sure Muhoozi becomes president of Uganda? And that is where he gets to the 700 young people or spirits of young people who have died. And it must be orchestrated by them. In the next few days, Museveni himself is going to go to Kapchorwa. Museveni or Muhoozi will go to Kapchorwa, to the site of the accident, to go and perform spiritual activity. And it's not because he's going to go there and just go straight to that. He's going to come formally, as if he's coming to the event of, I don't know, commemorating the children that have died. But his main goal will be to go there and perform the final rituals on those children's blood at the site of the accident. You notice he has picked the youngest group. The youngest group. I'm telling you, Museveni defends the Kadogos he had coming into power. He said African children, once they are 4 years old, they're good enough to fight. Give them the gun and they'll do it. That's exactly how he believes, because he resides in a spiritual world. Museveni is not here with us. No. No. He derives and thinks about his power from that far. While we are here saying, oh, we are Sevdis, we don't believe in this, Tulibalokole, we believe in God. Can you believe King David's school is a school of a lot of saved people? Balokole? Do you know that the people, Museveni's family are Balokole? Do you know that Natasha is a pastor? Do you know that Janet Museveni and Museveni, well, the late Janet Museveni and her husband pretend to be pastors or religious? But do you see how Museveni has captured all religious leaders, all of them, that go to State House and pick up brown envelopes every year, besides, without first of all looking at the medical budget? The budget for religious people passes and is over 5 billion Uganda shillings. That goes to religious people to keep them calm, because Museveni knows the power of the spiritual world. He knows whether you are Muslim, whether you are saved, whether you are Catholic, whether you are whatever you are. If somebody concentrates enough mentally to achieve something, they can achieve it. So Museveni snatches that power before it takes root. That's why pastors come out and curse Bobi Wine. There's this lousy woman who came out the other day, some sort of pastor like that, and said Bobi Wine has escaped, left the country, he has left his mansion here, and blah, 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 blah. Those are people who are paid by Museveni to come and tarnish Bobi Wine's name, to put it into the congregation, the Ndiga, to tell them to unwind what they had, to erase what they know, their belief, so that they put in garbage and start looking at His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu in a different way, in a disrespectful way, in a less mindful way, as if he's a useless person. But let me tell you this. The only person, and I respect Bobi Wine so much, His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, you can never find a stain on his name. No. No. It's like as if he did not grow up in Uganda and in the slums of Uganda. You couldn't believe the clean record of Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. You couldn't. Even the pastor who is speaking, I understand, has had some prostitutional history. Where does a prostitute or a former prostitute find the guts to come and persecute a man who has done just about everything right? We all make mistakes. I'm sure he's got some. But he doesn't have heavy hitters like the normal stuff. You've never heard that he has been cheating with us, I don't know, so-and-so. Bobi Wine has no child out of wedlock. Bobi Wine achieved his wealth from the age 25. He was one of the first drivers of an Escalade, and I'm not saying an Escalade measures up to wealth. Bobi Wine rose from a family where he was the very first or the only ones that came out and tested success that he had never seen. He couldn't say that my brother is wealthy, or my brother is this, or my dad is so wealthy, and you know, I'm going to be like my dad. No. This is somebody who forged his life on his own, but hit every target the right way. If anybody is an inspiration to the youth of Uganda, it's Bobi Wine. It's Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. I learn from him. We all should learn from him. Not Pastor Bujingo, who shot and killed his bodyguard, and they did nothing to him. Pastor Bujingo, who still stands up and preaches, shot and killed his bodyguard. This is the person who can insult Bobby Wine. Can you imagine? All these other artists have something that they've done. Chameleon killed somebody right in his yard. One of his bodyguards or security guards. I mean, you name it, he has been. He's highly respectable. He speaks well. He's a decent human being. His children are raised well. He has been married to one woman all of his life. All of his married life. He has done well for himself. Pastor Kayanja has tons, square miles of land in Karamoja. But do you know what is happening in Karamoja? Do you know what is happening in Karamoja? Children, mothers, men, all equal, are dying of hunger every day. Everybody. In Karamoja. Everybody's dying. Let me see if I can get some pictures. Pastor Kayanja is in Karamoja owning square miles of land. That is your pastor. Pastor Kayanja. Square miles of land. Some of you are not going to like me for this, but I really don't care. Some of you spiritually are consumed that you can't use your own reasoning, even for common sense to rescue you from this nonsense. All these pastors have flaunted money by Museveni to come out and instill filth in your mind. Even if you knew the image of Kyagulanyi as being a terrific human being, when the pastor speaks in church, you come out a changed person, an evil person. You look at him differently. You demean him. But yet the person who they are preaching, they preach Museveni all the time. They preach peace. Which peace do you have with buses flipping over like this, with children in them? Some of you who have lost children are NRM diehards. In fact, one of the guys who lost a nephew was seen not too long ago talking against His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. A few days ago, a nephew of his said goodbye to him and went to his death on a bus accident engineered by Museveni in State House. Do you see how it doesn't matter? Right must remain right across the board. Whether you are Mulokole, whether you are saved, you are Protestant, you are Catholic, you are Muslim, you are Buddhist, whatever you are, Seventh-day Adventist, let us focus on the truth first, is that our children should not die like this. That, let us say that is for sure the bone of what we need to build on. That is the bone. That if something goes wrong, it affects all of us. Look at the rescued South African Ugandans. The Ugandans who were brought from South Africa were brought straight into Changkwanzi. Well, they landed at Entebbe Airport and they were all forced into military trucks. Whether they consent or not, in fact, they didn't even ask their opinion. While they had their families waiting for them at the exit, at the gate to go home, they were diverted forcefully into Changkwanzi. And they have people like Nabanja, the dumbest human being in Ugandan government, going to teach them patriotism. I don't think she can even spell it. They are being indoctrinated. They are going to be forced into the Ugandan military, the UPDF, which UPDF does not serve Ugandans. These people are going to be used like those those target things they use when people are going to shoot targets. They will be in the front lines. If there's a real war or whatever, if they need them to go to Gaza, those are the people who are going to be boarded first, just so they're cleared. I mean, what more do you need? Can we just agree on what is true? Can we agree on what, like, the facts, the bones of life? Like, if you have a child, all these kids should matter to you, and well-being of all children should matter to you before religion. You know what I believe? My religion is doing what's right to another person. Treat somebody else the way I want to be treated. That is my religion. Then I can embellish with whichever house I go to pray, whichever one that is. But my religion is to do good. I don't want to miss good karma. I don't want to miss good karma. Because I know when you sow, you reap that. You can't sow potatoes and reap tomatoes. You can't. So let us first of all agree on the basic standards of and the bonds of life is that every child should matter to you. The children of the Onyum case should have been it because we hadn't caught on. We hadn't caught on that. That should have been it. Until we turn our focus and learn who the enemy is. I like to talk about Moses a lot because Moses was born at the times when the Pharaoh was killing all baby boys. All baby boys had been ordered to be killed at the time that Moses was born. When Moses was born, his mother said, you know what? I'm going to figure out. Now, during the times, let's talk about this. During the times when the Pharaoh ordered that boy children be killed, okay? Which I'll also talk about later because I have something that relates to that. The intention was that people who are birthing those children should strangle boys right away so they don't make it out of the birth canal. Like at birth, they'd bring the baby from wherever they bring it to you, dead. That was the idea. Then people said, you know what? And this is what Ugandans we should adopt. That we will know the source of our problems and figure out how to deal with it in a smarter way. Because if we keep listening to these pastors and sheikhs and all these people preaching Museveni, we are going to lose focus on what is important. So listen to this. So the Pharaoh ordered that at birth, all boy children be killed, which meant at the time of birth, they do something to the boy, hand them to the mother dead. Okay? So the mothers who were pregnant in the future, after that, figured out, you know what? We should not go to those birthing places anymore. Let us not call Mama Susan from over there to come and help us birth, because Mama Susan has killed most of the children that she has delivered. The mothers decided to deliver privately at home with their loved ones alone. That is a thought or a trend of thought that Ugandans should have. If going to schools is causing this, we have to figure out a different way. If going to trips is causing this, we have to figure out a different way. Don't go to trips. Your children should not go to trips. No. Okay? So, in the Bible, when those children, the mothers decided to have these children at home. And when they did, they were able to rescue more boys to live, including Moses. He was born at home. His mother decided to put him in a basket and float him on the river to anywhere where somebody of good faith would raise him. He ended up in the Pharaoh's daughter's hands, who could not or didn't have children. Raised in the kingdom of the same Pharaoh who has ordered the killings. That boy was raised there. He survived. Kyagulanyi was raised right under Museveni's nose. And he has survived several instances to kill him, which I'll get to later on. But when Kyagulanyi found out the problem of Uganda being Museveni and his people, after learning of this history, Kyagulanyi decided to rescue his people in a message, people power. We've all learned. I came out of people power. When I learned about that, I figured, you know what? Change of strategy. These are the problems we have now. Let's gear all our ammunition toward them. So Moses learned eventually when he grew up that he was actually a child of the slaves. Like Kyagulanyi realized that he was actually a child of the suffering Ugandans. That these people who call themselves Mama Uganda and Tata Uganda are actually not. They are the cause of our people dying. So Kyagulanyi decided, you know what? Change of strategy. From now on, I'm going to fight for the people the people on the ground, the actual Ugandans, because that's who we are. So us as Ugandan people, let us agree that our enemy is Museveni and his family. These Rwandese people are the enemy. When you have your kids, preach. I tell my children all the time, let your children know. Let whoever needs to know. I know we have challenges with our parents because they ushered him in, and some of them are doing too good to look at that side of the coin. I'm begging you to not be swooped by what they're telling you, especially if they're leaning towards Museveni and his family and Muhoozi. Break away from them as much as possible, because it is about you, who does not have a future now. If Moses had come out, if Moses had stayed the king, the son of the king, the son of the princess, the Israelites would have never been rescued. If Kyagulanyi Ssentamu had said, you know what, I'm actually doing pretty good. I'm wealthy, I'm married, my kids are doing well, my family is strong, you know, I've got everything I need. Why bother? If Kyagulanyi had done that, we would be nowhere. These accidents would happen like every day, every night. They would have no time to plan these things. Maybe Muhoozi would have another Kadogo, whatever, group, and start from there. But since His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu came and gave us people power, guys, let us take this and run with it. Let us figure out the bones of right and wrong and focus, and let somebody's pain be yours. You know, Moses left the kingdom, went away and strategized and came back. Bobby Wine, His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, when his life was at risk, like, you know, at the time that he was, for 2 months after the election period, when they searched everywhere high and low for him, he left the country to save his life, because then he can save Uganda even better. So the people who come and say nonsense, like that prostitute pastor who came and said, oh, he left, he ran away, blah, blah, blah. The things that His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu is moving from out here, you cannot do it in Uganda. It was meant to be that way. That is why I say Uganda is right where it should be. But join in the stampede so we can figure this out and get ahead maybe sooner. The Israelites, after leaving Egypt, spent 40 years in the desert because they couldn't agree on moving forward. I'm not a pastor or a preacher, but I read and I dissect and I think about things, and perfectly Moses relates to His Excellency and all of, you know, what so far what has happened. He's gone and is shaking the world. He is shaking up Uganda, I'm telling you. Museveni struggles with accountability more than anything in this world. This is the guy who already stole the election. He has won, but is in a hot seat. He cannot exist peacefully. The way he had planned it, by now he'd be gone to Tanzania, maybe dead or whatever. Museveni can't afford to die. No, he can't. Because everything they planned has been wiped off the table. Everything. Everything they planned, the transition of power, has been wiped off. They're at square one. They didn't think Rwanda would be this unstable. They thought Rwanda would be polished, done, a diamond. No. 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 The other day, Visit Rwanda was stripped from Rwanda. All that money that was spent, over $17 trillion, came from Uganda to go and promote Rwanda at the FIFA on the buses, saying Visit Rwanda. That money came from Uganda. The Salim Salehs were fighting over it the other day. In their fight, during these transitions, what they tell Muhoozi that they've done, we pick on and come and share with you. The insides of them we bring to you in the most refined way possible. So that, because it is meant to be. It's meant to be. It is absolutely meant to be. It's meant to be. We're right where we should be, but let us all figure out how to stand on the bounds of our lives. Let what affects another person affect you a certain way. In your heart, find it to work and support each other instead of fighting each other. If it means leaving a church, all of you leave a church. I don't know why anybody goes to Wijingo's church. Why? This prostitute woman should have no congregation by tomorrow Sunday. Nobody should go to her church. Because what do we have to learn from her? Clearly, Kyagulanyi Ssentamu had been sought after by Muhoozi in his tweets, where he says, I've only killed 24 Ugandans during the 15th January election this year. The 25th person will be Bobi Wine. How did she miss that? How does any politician who comes to say Bobi Wine just ran away miss that? Especially if you support PLU or NRM or Museveni. How do you miss the fact that Bobi Wine's life was at threat? Why do you still go to that church? Why do you relate with somebody who believes like that? I don't care if it's the father of my kids, I'll be out of there. I've seen young people standing against their parents who are NRM. I would do exactly the same. If your parent cannot see that your future is dimmed, that his grandchildren's future is nowhere, trust me, I will rescue me and my lineage. Because I must focus on my future. Yes, I have a past, but my future is most important to me. My children and what they become is important. If you have lost a child in these tragedies, I pray for you. My heart is with you. But can we now come together, especially if you are on the other side, and see that this government is not for us? The mother who went and had to find their child in the mortuary, and yet they were still alive. Can you agree that this is a bit crazy? Why is it that Balamu is at every single accident scene? All of them, he was there. Balaam is the one who caused the exhumation of Paulo Cafero. I told you about the Paulo Cafero history. Paulo Cafero, the real reason why Paulo Cafero was exhumed was because the same spiritual person of Museveni told him that the person who is going to dislodge him from power and prevent his son from getting into power is going to be an artist. Therefore, he should find one of the very first artists that has ever existed, figure out how to find him, exhume him, bring him to his place so that they can do stuff to that person. The bones of Paulo Cafero are in Museveni's shrine. The bones of Paulo Cafero, after the exhumation, it was not about DNA. That is why all the numbers are screwed up and all that. Whatever they did was not for DNA purposes. Paulo's spitting image was rejected as one of his children. The guy, was rejected as a Paulo Cafero's child. I don't care if they go for foreign DNA or whatever the case might be. Museveni wanted the body of Paulo Cafero to be in his shrine so that he can try to figure out how to get rid of His Excellency's power. After he got the bones of Paulo Cafero, he said, now Bobi Wine will not survive. That's what Museveni assumed. That's what he assumed. I can tell you that for those doubters, for the people who are doubting this, why does Museveni have a relationship with Mama Fina? His daughter is a pastor, okay? His wife claimed to pray a lot. Museveni hosts a lot of these church leaders. What does he have to do with Mama Fina? Okay, put that aside. Let's say that's a coincidence. Mama Fina is a citizen. Although there's so many citizens in Uganda who Museveni doesn't care a damn thing about. So let's leave that. Why is it that funeral sites of people. Yes, Robin, I believe that. Why is it that prominent people who have died, Museveni has their graves guarded by security? I can speak for the late Jacob Olanya. His grave is guarded every single day. They may have moved them now. He was guarded for the first few months. I don't know why. Here's what I believe happens. Because a lot of these people who die, the leaders, especially prominent people in places, people who matter, who Museveni feels like he must dim their light a little bit, spiritually, I'm speaking. Do you know that people who have died, and people who work at funeral services will tell you, they do not hold bodies of prominent people who have died from the day the person dies or is released from the mortuary to the day they bury them, not consistently. Sometimes those bodies are picked up and taken to Museveni for his ritual purposes. I can tell you this for a fact. Sometimes, let me repeat that. People who work in funeral services will tell you that when they go and pick up somebody from a mortuary, let's say Mulago or something, to take to a funeral service place where they store them or do their cleaning and stuff, those people do not consistently stay in their service at their watch from the day of receipt to the burial date. They have to be taken to State House, to Museveni first, so he can do certain things to them. Believe it or not, I can speak for a few people, which I know for a fact that these things happen. And you know who the people are. Absolutely did. The reason why he guards those graves is because sometimes those people are not buried in there. Sometimes, many times, the human of that person they say is supposed to be in that grave is not there. Museveni will have the military hang around the grave until a period of time where he believes the body may have decomposed and the parts are irrecognizable anyway, and nobody will bother with the exhumation to make sure people have forgotten. You know, if you've forgotten my mom, whoever is buried here, you know, that's just what it is. But why does Museveni guard people's grave? Paul Lokech's grave was guarded for a long time. The late Jacob Olanya was guarded for a while. And I know for a fact that these people were taken to him first. It is possible that he mutilated them and did some things to them before he can give them, if he did, for burial. You do know for a fact that I had to send a message on Facebook stating that Museveni is truly evil because he could not let the family of Jacob Olanya to view his body. Did not. And this is what happens to most of the people, prominent people who end up dying. They're buried without being looked at. The viewing never happens. I sent a message on Facebook saying, Museveni yekaza. At home, when the body laid at home, nobody saw it. Nobody saw Jacob Olanya's body at home. In public, nobody. Until I sent that message, then the viewing happened. Many people testified and said, man, if you didn't send that message, we wouldn't see our people. Vicky, thank you. Vicky saying that is the truth. And thank you, Vicky. We have to start seeing certain things the way they are. And Museveni does things, you know, he will say this and mean this. That's how the guy works. Kasiria Gwanga, they said that Kasiria Gwanga is not in his grave. Kasiria Gwanga. Not in his grave. His grave was guarded. I don't know if it's still being guarded. But that's Museveni for you. Those of you who don't think Museveni is spiritual and full of witchcraft, why does he guard the graves of certain people? And some people are buried by the military. They don't see the families don't get to even see their own people or participate in the process. Museveni does it all. I'm telling you, when you think about this, the graveness of what this guy does with human life, you can never say Museveni tuyambe, or Museveni konywa, or Museveni help us. You will never cry Museveni. We will all turn our guns toward him. I'm not saying guns as in physical guns. We would all detest Museveni equally to free Uganda. We would all detest all these Banyarwanda people equally. So if you still don't think Museveni's thing is spiritual and is about witchcraft, these children who are dying, explain to me why the graves of prominent Ugandans are guarded when they're buried in their ancestral homes, where they're a child and belong to that home. Why is the former speaker's grave guarded at home with his father? Why? Why? Is it possible that he's not in there? Is it possible that Museveni did something? Is it possible that Museveni is worried that if these people suspected foul play, they would exhume their person and figure out what happened? It's possible. And so are these children. So are these children. Check the records, because you never know if some of them might just get missing for good. Some of them. You can't take Museveni for face value. No. No. You shouldn't. But more so, let us have the bare bones of what matters to all of us so we can kick out this enemy. What matters should be uniform. Our children, our future, our healthcare, our education, all of these things that are, you know, like the face bone, the leg bone, the backbone, let those bones that matter be uniform to all of us, not some people. Some of you think these things won't affect you because you have NRM, your father is this, your father is that. Let me tell you, a minister's, one of Museveni's people who is high in government, has a daughter who did S6 PCB or BCG or something like that, BCB or something like that, and went to university and is now applying for university to try to get into medicine and surgery. She went to Bweranyanji Girls. I got this one from Pastor this morning. Bweranyanji Girls, to seek admission into university to study medicine or surgery. Do you know that they have denied this girl medicine or anything medically related degree at all universities, even if she wanted to pay private? Do you see that they're channeling Ugandans to study courses that don't really matter, but giving the main courses to the Banyarwanda? A Banyarwanda can study history, English, I don't know if they do English anymore, history, literature, and divinity, and proceed to study medicine at Makerere on government sponsorship. BCM is what she studied. Akori, thank you so much. Akorio, Winnie, my namesake. She studied BCM and had 18 points. She is well intended to study medicine if nature would have it the right way. She's prepared straight out of high school in the right direction for medicine or surgery. This girl was blocked from going through to study medicine anywhere. Medicine and law has been restricted to only run these people. And I don't care what, even if they study just general paper in high school. They're the straight shot to medicine. Whether they pass this medicine or not, it doesn't matter to them. All they care about is position in place. I saw a post yesterday from Dr. Kauma, the leader of National Unity Platform USA chapter. Dr. Kauma said 89 of Civil Aviation Authority workers have been discovered to have forged papers, forged degrees. This makes sense because I had spoken about the reason and the purpose for having Janet Museveni the late, as the Minister of Education and Sports. And the reason they burned Makerere faculty, I don't think the office that had to do with records was burned at Makerere. Just like Bulange, where they burned refugee records for the Musevenis and how they arrived in Uganda. All of these activities are not an accident. They're planned. They plan to put Janet Museveni so that they can generate new certificates and credentials for their Rwandese people to put them in places. Some of them went as far as going to ambassadorial positions in the Western world and learning on the job. People like Bamuturachi, who was the executive at the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, who Kosase figured out she did not have any papers. Her certificate was engineered because Janet sat on the ministry's highest chair. All manner of certificates have been forged and given to them. Diana Atwine has no background in medicine whatsoever, but she is in charge of medicine or health ministry. Diana Atwine, look at her credentials. Nothing to do with medicine. Could not give you Tylenol or figure out what you're sick of. Any day. She is in charge of the Ministry of Health. Everything these people have done has been strategic and on purpose. Burning Bulange Mengo, they burned refugee records which had their information when they came into Uganda as refugees. That is the reason why they burned that place in Buganda. To erase the records of their entry in Uganda and their relationships to whomever they had. The burning of Makerere Records Department was to be able to start afresh with new educational credentials for their people. All of a sudden, Janet now is educated and worth a ministerial position. All of a sudden, Bamuturachi is the executive of Uganda Civil Authority. 89 other people working in Uganda Civil Aviation Authority have no credentials. These are people in charge of safety of aircrafts. Safety. Safety. Imagine how many people are in the medical field parading as doctors, nurses, and different, specialties in medicine who are not credentialed or not educated in that way, but are applying themselves and getting paid handsomely by the government. Their people don't miss a paycheck, right? Only Ugandans miss payroll 3, 4, 6 months. Rwandese people do not miss pay. They're paid handsomely and extra. Ugandans, natives, like the Cancer Institute I was telling you about, the cancer machine at the Cancer Institute does not work. The light just turns on. But they will make sure to admit somebody, put them in the machine and turn the light on. And you lay there thinking it's working, but it's not. But you must pay the amount of money that they've asked you, and it's in millions. Millions. Of that money that is collected, 60% of it is collected by Museveni's government every single month. You would think since they collect a lot of money, they can buy a new machine, invest in a new machine. No. They don't care if you have a cancer scanner machine. The cancer screening machine that they had brought prior, or treatment machine, one of the treatment machines that they brought ended up in Rwanda. Somebody who works in both places found the machine that was intended for Uganda, that was bought with Uganda's money, being used in Rwanda instead. So all we have in Uganda is a machine that turns on the light. But people think it's treating them because of desperation. You're desperate, you need care. They'll tell you this is it. And you're like, you know what, I'll try whatever there is to try. And they go and pretend to be treating them, but they're truly not being treated. That is government policy. Ugandans, the policy, whatever is happening in Uganda, the suffering in Karamoja, the hunger in, the reason why Karamoja suffers is because it's extremely wealthy mineral-wise. Karamoja has the best gold. Karamoja has oil. Karamoja has diamonds. Karamoja has all sorts of things. In Karamoja, you will find permanent housing built by Rwandese all over Karamoja. In Karamoja, you'll find the largest herds of cattle in Karamoja. In Karamoja, you'll find Pastor Kayanja has square miles of land that he's farming on. But over here, the poor Karamojongs are killed every day. I mean, they shoot them like birds all day, every day. No records. They don't have cameras. Nobody records nothing. People are dying of hunger because it has been so dry, both in Acholi and Karamoja, and I believe in between. I haven't searched both. In between, there's famine that could wipe Karamoja off the face of this earth. I mean, native Karamojongs could all be gone by the end of this year. That is how bad it is. Because they've been chased away from their original homes, their places where they knew where to find water and this and that. All those designated places where life can thrive, they've been kicked out into actual desert with nothing. Nothing. And they're being left to die day and night. Let me see if I can find some photos for you. This is an elderly person in Karamoja. That's Karamoja. This is a child in Karamoja. This is another elderly in Karamoja. Look at how people look in a place where a whole pastor, Kayanja, who you fill up his church and send mobile money in dollars even from abroad to support a church of this evil man. Look at Karamoja. Look at the children of Karamoja. Look at the children of Karamoja. That must be Kwashako. Look. That's a youth in Karamoja. See what people are eating? People end up eating weeds. Some even poisonous. Raise the phone high up. I'm sorry, Vicky. This is why religion is just... Why go to those churches? Why? Why do you care? I think if you did something for Karamoja, personally, you're performing a mission. You're giving yourself You're giving more than you can do by giving a church. This is what I want to say. If you can do something for Karamoja and Karamojongs, personally, you don't need to go to church. I believe in service. I honestly believe in service. And I may be wrong. But instead of going to one of those churches of those pastors who just preach money and this, that, and the other, give to somebody. Give to Karamoja. Give somewhere. Do something for somebody in need. Trust me, God will register that more than you being present in one of those stupid churches. So I want you guys to pay attention to, this is a security alert, Sezibwa Falls. Sezibwa is one of the places where they're planning to have something to cause the next accident. Sezibwa, because Sezibwa has some spiritual ties, and because it's in Kayunga, and Kayunga has a spiritual meaning that means inclusion of that region or that area, Kayunga. It is a reason why Museveni married Nantaba. Nantaba was not out of love. Nantaba was a request from the spiritual person so that Museveni can have Buganda, sort of, because of the meaning of Kayunga and her coming from Kayunga. There's nothing special about Nantaba. It is just because of the spiritual meaning of that being that she's from that area. Okay? So I think I've had enough of the spiritual world. I just wanted us to understand that everything that's going to happen to children going forward is because Museveni is fulfilling his spiritual need. It is not because of any accidents happening, roads bad or whatever, because it doesn't make sense how a driver can intentionally do this, even telling the kids, I'm going to do this, and actually act on it, and then he jumps out of the vehicle while the vehicle is about to land or crash. There's no accident in that. Yes, Vicky, Nantaba is married to Museveni. You didn't know? Yes, she is. Museveni took a bunch of cows to where she comes from. She even has a child who is in Canada, who looks exactly like Museveni. Yes. Nantaba was spiritually, her marriage was spiritual and not out of love or anything like that. And that's the reason Museveni has more women in government right now and positions, is because of all of these are spiritual requirements, not because he prefers them. You know, I don't think Nabanja adds any value to that position. Nothing. It's just like a bag of something. Nothing. But because it's a spiritual requirement, that is why Nabanja is in that place where she is. So I've got a lot to talk about, but I want to go to some of the highlights of the other things. The money for vehicles for members of parliament, as you know, they receive them like shortly after they come into their positions. That money is going to be held up because Museveni expects or wants Muhoozi. When I speak about Muhoozi, it's Museveni, the same thing. He wants to have by-elections in several regions, especially removing NUP members from their positions, so that he can add more NRM members or leaders in those positions. This goes to show you how half-filled these people are. Imagine Museveni already has majority in parliament. You would think, now that he claimed that he's the president of Uganda, or he stole the election, that he would be peaceful. Why does he still want these other positions that are minimal to what he already has in parliament? It's not going to change the voting rights. If all these people vote yes, he's still going to pass whatever he needs to pass. But he wants to see to it that NUP is not in parliament. So several NUP offices are going to have by-elections. Most of them are going to be either taken out formally or some of them taken out in technicalities. But until then, that money for vehicles is not coming to all the members of parliament as they're expecting it within the right time. They're not going to get that. Okay. There's something that is crazy that's happening at bus stations in Kampala. The buses that travel to upcountry. There is, I understand some places have showers or like wash stations. And in those wash stations, they have soap that has been poisoned already. I got an assurance from somebody who was transporting those items, the poisoned soap from some place to take to one of those locations. So those of you who are traveling up country, do not, why are you taking a shower in Kampala or in a bus station? There's no need to do that. If possible, do not touch anything on your way before or after, unless it's food that you bought from somewhere where you trust the source. Do not do that, because everything that they have in different places has some sort of nerve agent that when you use it or wash your hands or spread it on your skin, sanitizer, lotion, soap, water, all of those have the nerve agent that will affect you. So those traveling from different parts, from Kampala to different parts of Uganda, don't use it, because they're trying to paint a picture of Kampala stations or bus stations or buses being a region that is causing travelers who frequently travel to have certain diseases. People are going to start thinking, we caught something in Kampala. We caught something in Kampala. They'll then start to boycott. But the idea is to have by 2032, when the elections happen, 2030, 2032, when those elections happen next, that Ugandans are completely laid back. They are not going to fight Muhoozi coming into power. Despite the different avenues, they're planning to set themselves ready. They want to make sure that even then, certain areas like these, they make sure that, they've set the ball rolling. Like the nerve agent will work gently and slowly for a while, causing heart problems, lung or breathing problems, nerves, immune systems, kidney failure. And within 3 years, most of the regions will have the illness and will feel, and then they'll start blaming it on Kampala and Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. Somehow they will start saying that they've caught something. There's something that comes from Kampala that they're picking up and taking to their regions, especially the frequent travelers. Sometimes when they do these things, even the bus people or the bus companies don't know what's happening. They can't even explain. They can't understand what's happening. So this security alert is important, because if you can pass the information to those who travel or do that, know these things, then they don't get involved. No need to wash your hands at a bus station. No need to shower at a bus station. No need to use their sanitizer. No need to touch anything other than what you have. And take your seats, bring what you're bringing, take your blanket or whatever with you, and just mind your business. Because all the chemicals are all over the place. That is where they are for now. They could change what they're doing with it. But what I'm giving you now, when I got this information, the person was on the way taking them for distribution. Okay? So it's serious. Buganda. Mayiga is bragging about 6 Buganda leaders who have already taken some sort of poison. And he expects that within the next few months, by December, several Buganda leaders will be gone. Several. 6 of them. He believes that by the end of this year, they will be gone. And once they're gone, they will replace them with Rwandese who are already there and ready to take up positions. Okay? Wangadia. Museveni says he must deal with Wangadia worse than Anita Among. It's hard to even talk about this, but I'm just going to, because she's a human being, I will say this. Wangadia is going to go through worse than Anita Among. Museveni has asked Wangadia to recall the statement she made that she openly accused Museveni of being behind all of these things. Wangadia instead, because Museveni said instead of resigning, she should recall what she said and stay on the position. Instead, Wangadia went on to resign. Now that has angered Museveni terribly, because as usual, he makes orders and expects people to follow. So despite her submitting her resignation, they have ordered her to stay on the job. So whether she likes it or not, she's going to stay on the job. Another plot is there to get rid of one of her children so that they bring her to her knees. But Wangadia, if she has not left and doesn't leave the country, she's going to have it worse than Anita Among. Anita Among, they're just waiting for the time when they'll pronounce her not here. All these Imorimori and everybody going to talk to Museveni, they take pictures of Museveni and Imorimori begging that Museveni take Anita off house arrest. First of all, Museveni intentionally made Anita on house arrest. Whether Anita gets medicine depends on Museveni's feeling. Museveni does not want Anita Among to speak. Museveni knows that Anita Among knows a lot, that Anita Among, once released, will speak and tell a lot of dirt on him. Therefore, it is Museveni's government policy to make sure that Anita Among will continue declining until she's dead. Whether Imorimori asks, whether I don't know who comes from where to ask for her release, Museveni is enjoying the photos with you guys coming, but immediately you leaders leave, he meets with his people and says, tighten the bolts. Make sure she doesn't leave that house. Anita Among will not survive this. Wangadia will not survive Museveni because they know too much. Yeah, Vicky, did you not see Imorimori with Museveni? So Museveni will kill one of her children, and eventually Wangadia will be charged with corruption, just like Anita Among was charged. But she will have, yes, Dora, absolutely. She will have the worst experience than Anita Among because she went ahead and spoke publicly against Museveni. And it's already recorded and it has gone out and she can't retract it because it's already in the files all over the world. She can't retract what she said about Museveni. Despite Museveni warning it, it can't come back. So, he promised that his wrath on her is going to be worse than Anita Among. One of her kids is already being targeted, and eventually they'll arrest her, they'll shame her, they'll rape, whatever Museveni does to female prisoners, he's going to do worse to Wangadia. I'm leaving it out there because, hey, she's a human being, I'm one. Deal with it as she pleases. South African returnees. There were two categories of South African returnees who came back from South Africa. They had the people who planned to bring them back had two separate lists. Those who wanted to see Museveni and those who said they did not want to see Museveni. Everybody who said they want to see Museveni is safe. Everybody who said they did not want to see Museveni are going to come back either poisoned, hurt, or when they come back, they'll just disappear somehow. Because they've said that these guys who did not sign up to see Museveni are probably National Unity Platform, and they'll deal with them before they even get released. So I understand some of them are separated in their quarters where they sleep. The ones who said yes and the ones who said no. So I don't know if I should say this. I've heard from some people who are in there, obviously. Both NRM and NAN are asking for Kyagulanyi Ssentamu's help to save them. But until they're released, we're not going to know what happened to who. Because they've just said, the ones who said they don't want to see Museveni will be dealt with. Okay? Once I know more information, I'll share. I just saw a post about Katunji being, his extradition that was ordered or requested by the U.S. because of bilateral relations in that way have been rejected. The High Court today rejected the release of Katunji into the hands of the Americans. That says two things. Katunji is safer in the United States than with the Muhozis. Because right now, with Katunji being held back in Uganda, that means Museveni is going to figure out how to eliminate him because Katunji, they fear for Katunji speaking. The same reason why, let me not go there. Had Katunji been released to the United States, he could have been probably questioned enough that he would reveal some things in a plea deal for less sentence or whatever the case might be. But Museveni has decided to... Vicky, you're asking why didn't they take their own flights? So because of sovereignty of nations, the US can't just fly into Uganda and pick up Katunji and take him away. They have to work through certain relationships like courts and all that. The orders go in order, documented and all of that. I know they did it to Maduro, but you have to be a crime of that nature, a criminal of that nature. This was different. And so with Katunji staying in Uganda, it's a matter of time. Because even in Uganda, they don't want him to speak. The same things, same issues. Anita Among, now Wangadia, now Katunji. It doesn't matter. Whoever does their dirty work will have to pay somehow. So if this doesn't speak to the rest of you who are still working with Museveni, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. And we can't help you when it's too far. You know, Anita Among cannot be helped right now. Wangadia, when the ball starts rolling, nobody's going to try to rescue her. We're telling her now so maybe she can get away, but if she doesn't, well, there's only so much we can do. I've also seen some tweets that have been shared about Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi. I want to speak about Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi in a big way. His case, not that any doesn't break my heart, but Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi is a very sad and tough case. We don't know where he is yet. We keep searching. We know he's with Muhoozi for sure. He's being beaten. I understand he has fainted several times, and it's not possible to release him to the public yet. But their plan is that at some point they will release him and drop him off in one of the courts, like they did Eddie Mutwe. But they're waiting. Usually when they abduct somebody and they beat him so badly, like Eddie Mutwe, I believe about 1 to 2 weeks, once the bruises or he starts to wake up or feel a bit normal, then they release him to the public or to the courts or whatever the case may be. So that will be happening with Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi of National Unity Platform, the Vice President Central. One of the big announcements this morning is His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu has announced that, thankfully, thanking Dr. Lina Zedriga, Mama Lina Zedriga, the Vice President of Uganda, Northern Uganda, is now going to be succeeded by Honorable Nambeshi, because according to the new Constitution, there are only certain amounts of times where somebody can be president or act as president while the president is away. So the next designated president is Honorable Nambeshi. When you see him or meet him, or we are going to respect him as such. He's now the current National Unity Platform acting president in Uganda. Last but not least, we have a convention in Los Angeles for National Unity Platform. Come one, come all. You are all welcome. From the 14th, sorry, is it the 14th? 1 second. I think it's from the 14th, but let me check. Anybody know the dates for the National Unity Platform Convention? I believe from the 14th to the 17th. If I'm wrong, correct me. August 13th to August 17th. Come one, come all. Let's meet our president. Let's share ideas. Myself, I've not met His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, so I look forward to it. But come one, come all. Let's support each other. Let's be there. Let us enjoy our president. I'm glad that despite as much work as he's been, do you know that he's working more here than he has done he does in Uganda, because he's stifled in Uganda. he's completely free here to do more activity to move Uganda forward. So exciting, exciting, exciting. And we'll see you all there. Thank you very much for the live today, for coming and attending. Maureen, I see you. Winnie, thank you very much. Vicky, you're welcome. Calvin, you're welcome. And everybody else who's here. I appreciate you being here, but more so, I'm glad that we can share some information. Kevin, yes, Kelvin, 14th to the 18th of August. Okay. I don't know where I got 13th to the 18th. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. So we have the correct date. I've also shared it on my page. Pass it on. Let's all come together. Let's do more of big things, but let the core things, let what matters matter to all of us. Let what's right be right for all of us, and what's wrong be wrong for all of us. Whether it's somebody's child that's lost in an accident, it should feel like yours. It should feel like mine. Okay? Remind your children, tell everybody the enemy is Museveni and Museveni's family. They're the only enemies of Uganda, nobody else. The enemies of Uganda are Rwandese and purely Museveni's family and his people. So let us turn our focus onto fighting for each other, staying strong for each other, supporting each other. Remember, what you do is your own ministry. You don't have to go to church to do great things. You can do from right where you are. Perform your own ministry. Do as good as you wish done unto you by yourself, and your blessings will reign like no other. Okay? Be your own ministry. Do not go to those churches. Do not go to those mosques where people speak against His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, because they're speaking against you and your children and your future. Okay? Take care. I love you. Bye.